For almost 200 years, humanity stayed silent. Across the galaxy, thousands of alien races fought endless wars. Giant fleets burned entire planets. Empires rose and fell like storms in space. Every year, new battles started near the borders of the Galactic Alliance, but humans never joined. Earth stayed far away from galactic politics. Human ships rarely traveled outside their own systems. They traded food, metal, medicine, and technology. But they refused every military alliance. Many aliens laughed at them. They are weak. They are afraid. Humans hide behind their planets like children. Those words spread across the galaxy for years. The strange thing was, humanity never answered. No threats, no anger, no warnings, only silence. That silence made some races uncomfortable, especially the older races. The oldest alien civilizations remembered something strange about humans. Long ago, when humanity first reached space, they learned faster than anyone expected. Their technology improved at an impossible speed. In only a few generations, humans turned weak mining colonies into powerful industrial worlds. Then suddenly, they stopped expanding, almost overnight. It was as if humanity had stepped back into the shadows on purpose. Nobody understood why, but the younger races did not care about old stories. To them, humans were simply cowards. Far from Earth, near the outer edge of Alliance territory, a massive war was already burning across the stars. The Dravok Empire attacked another Alliance sector. The Dravok were feared across the galaxy. Their fleets destroyed entire civilizations without mercy. Their ships were enormous black fortresses covered in heavy weapons. Every species feared them. For 6 months, Alliance forces fought desperately to stop the invasion. They failed, one by one. Alliance worlds fell into darkness. Finally, the Alliance gathered its largest fleet near the border of human-controlled space. Over 8,000 warships waited near the dead planet Keros 9. Admiral Turvak, commander of the Alliance fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the tactical display with tired eyes. Red warning symbols filled the screen. Enemy ships were everywhere. We cannot hold them much longer, one officer said quietly. Turvak did not answer. Immediately, outside the giant command window, hundreds of damaged Alliance ships floated silently through space. Some were burning. Others had lost engines or weapons during the fighting. The fleet was dying. Then the alarms suddenly activated. A loud warning sound echoed across the bridge. Enemy fleet entering the sector, shouted an officer. The display changed instantly. Thousands of Dravok warships appeared from hyperspace. The bridge became silent. Even experienced officers looked afraid. The enemy fleet was massive, too massive, Admiral. Turvak slowly closed his eyes. This is the end, someone whispered. The Dravok fleet moved forward like a dark storm. Huge battle cruisers blocked the stars themselves. Their weapon systems glowed red as attack formations spread across space. Then the Dravok commander sent a message across all channels. You are surrounded. Surrender your fleet and your worlds may survive. Nobody answered. The battle began seconds later. Space exploded into fire. Bright beams of energy crossed the darkness. Missiles burned through the void like falling stars. Entire ships vanished in massive explosions. Alliance fleets fought desperately, but the Dravok kept advancing. One Alliance cruiser split in half after a direct hit. Another exploded beside it. Every minute, more ships disappeared. Admiral Turvak watched the disaster unfold with horror. Then suddenly, unknown signals detected. A scanner officer shouted. Everyone turned toward him. What kind of signals? Turvak asked. The officer looked confused. I don't know. More alarms activated across the bridge. New ships entering the system. The tactical display zoomed outward. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. Dark. Objects appeared near the edge of the battle. Large. Objects, very large. The scanner struggled to identify them. Then, the computer finally displayed a result. Unknown. Human vessels detected. The bridge became completely silent. Humans, one officer said in disbelief. That's impossible, another whispered. More ships appeared, behind the first group. Then more, and more. A giant fleet slowly emerged from hyperspace. But these were not normal human ships. They looked terrifying, massive, Black warships moved silently through the darkness. Their armor looked thick and heavy like moving mountains of steel. Strange blue lights glowed softly across their hulls. No symbols, no decorations, only cold metal even. The Dravok fleet stopped advancing for a moment. The human ships formed a perfect line across space, thousands of them silent, waiting. Then a transmission arrived. From the human fleet, a calm voice spoke across every channel. This battle area is now under human protection. The entire Alliance bridge stared at the speakers in shock. One Dravok commander started laughing over the communication network. Humans, he said mockingly. You finally leave your hiding place? Several Dravok officers laughed with him. You are too late, the commander continued. Leave now and we may spare your worlds. The human voice answered immediately. No, just one word. Cold, emotionless. The Dravok commander became angry. All fleets attack. Thousands of enemy ships moved toward the human line. Admiral Tervak watched nervously. He expected the human fleet to break apart instantly, but the human ships did not move. They stayed perfectly still. Then one human warship activated its main weapon. A deep blue light slowly formed near the front of the ship. The energy grew. Brighter, brighter, brighter. And then the weapon fired. Massive beam crossed space in one blinding flash. The front section of the Dravok fleet simply disappeared. Not damaged, not destroyed. Gone, entire. Battle cruisers vanished instantly. The explosion lit up nearby planets like artificial suns. Shock spread across every communication channel. Nobody spoke, nobody moved, even the Dravok fleet froze. Admiral Tervak stared at the tactical screen with wide eyes. Over 300 enemy ships were gone after a single shot. One shot. The human fleet finally began moving forward, slowly, like predators entering dark water. Then more human weapons activated. Blue light filled the battlefield, and for the first time in many centuries, the mighty Dravok Empire began retreating in fear. Far away from the battle, inside the largest human warship, a tall human admiral stood quietly on his bridge. Behind him, thousands of hidden warships continued arriving from deep space. An officer looked toward the admiral nervously. Sir, he asked softly, after all these years, are we truly doing this? The admiral watched the burning battlefield in silence. Then he gave his answer. Yes. Outside the command window, the giant human fleet moved deeper into the galactic war, and across the stars, billions of terrified aliens finally understood the truth. Humanity had never been weak. Humanity had simply been waiting. The galaxy fell into panic after the Battle of Karis 9. Every news network replayed the same recording again and again. One human ship, one single shot, 300 Dravok warships erased from existence. No alien race had ever seen power like that before. Inside the halls of the Galactic Alliance, leaders argued day and night. Where did humanity get those weapons? How many ships do they really have? Why did they hide their military for so long? Nobody had answers. Even the oldest races looked nervous now. For centuries, humans had acted peaceful and distant. They traded resources. They avoided politics. They rarely showed advanced military technology. Now the galaxy realized something terrifying. Humanity had been hiding its true strength the entire time. Meanwhile, the Dravok Empire burned with anger. Deep inside the imperial capital, Supreme Warlord Craven stood before a giant hologram showing the destroyed fleet. The room was silent. No officer dared to speak. Craven's massive armored hand slowly crushed the metal railing beside him. Humans, he growled. The word itself sounded dangerous. One nervous officer finally stepped forward. Our fleets were not prepared for their weapons. My lord. Craven turned toward him with cold eyes. Then prepare them. The officer lowered his head quickly. Yes, my lord. Craven stared at the hologram again. For the first time in many years, he felt something unusual, uncertainty. The humans had changed everything overnight, and that made them dangerous. Very dangerous. Far away, inside Alliance territory, surviving fleets gathered near Earth space for emergency repairs. Alien crews watched human ships carefully from a distance. Nobody trusted them completely. The human fleet looked unnatural compared to normal galactic ships. Most alien vessels were built for speed and beauty. Their hulls were smooth and bright. Human ships were different, heavy, dark, brutal. They looked like giant floating fortresses designed only for war. One Alliance captain quietly whispered while staring at a nearby human. "Dreadnought. That thing looks less like a ship, and more like a weapon." Nobody disagreed. Inside Earth's solar system, hidden military stations suddenly became active after many years of silence. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, giant factory lines awakened. Massive machines started building weapons non-stop. On Mars, hidden defense cannons rose from underground bunkers. Around Saturn, enormous shipyards hidden inside the ring slowly opened like giant steel flowers. Thousands of new warships waited inside. Humanity had been preparing for war far longer than anyone imagined. Even most humans did not know the full truth. For generations, secret military programs operated in hidden locations across the solar system. Human scientists believed one dangerous idea: peace never lasts forever. So while the galaxy fought small wars, humanity prepared for the worst possible future, and now that future had arrived. Inside one hidden shipyard near Jupiter, Admiral Elias Kane walked through a massive construction chamber. Workers stopped and saluted as he passed. Above them floated a half-finished warship so large it almost disappeared into darkness. The ship was enormous. Its main cannon alone was larger than some alien cruisers. An engineer approached the admiral carefully. "Sir, the Titan-class dreadnought will be ready in 3 weeks. Kane nodded silently. "Good," he answered. The engineer hesitated for a moment. Then he asked the question many humans secretly feared. "Do you really think the war will reach Earth?" Admiral Kane looked toward the unfinished dreadnought. "Yes," he said quietly. "And when it does, the galaxy will see what humanity became while they ignored us." At the edge of human space, strange reports started spreading among Alliance scouts. Entire Dravok patrol fleets were disappearing. No survivors, no distress signals, just silence. One Alliance reconnaissance ship finally discovered the truth. The missing fleets were being hunted. Human attack groups moved through dark space like ghosts. Their smaller ships used stealth systems unknown to the galaxy. They attacked quickly, destroyed targets completely, then vanished before enemy reinforcements arrived. The Dravok Empire slowly began, losing control near human territory. For the first time in decades, Dravok commanders started fearing the dark. Then came the invasion. Angry and desperate, Supreme Warlord Craven ordered a direct strike against humanity itself. 5,000 Dravok warships entered human-controlled space. Their target was Arcadia Station, one of humanity's outer colonies near Neptune. Dravok commanders expected an easy victory. Instead, they entered a nightmare. As the enemy fleet approached the station, the area looked strangely quiet. No defense, ships, no movement. One Dravok officer laughed. "Cowards," he mocked. Then the mines activated. Thousands of hidden explosives suddenly surrounded the enemy fleet. Space erupted into fire. Entire warships exploded instantly. Before the Dravok could recover, human attack ships appeared from behind nearby moons. Blue weapons flashed across the darkness. Human pilots moved with terrifying precision. They attacked engines. First, then weapons, then bridges. The battle became chaos. Dravok formations collapsed within minutes. One enemy cruiser tried escaping, but a human destroyer rammed directly into it at full speed. Both ships exploded together. Alliance observers watched the battle recordings. Later, with shock, human soldiers fought differently. From every other race, they were not reckless, they were determined. Even when badly damaged, human ships kept fighting. Even when surrounded, human marines kept advancing. The Dravok expected fear, but humans fought like people protecting their homes, and that made them terrifying. Hours later, the invasion fleet finally retreated. Thousands of enemy ships drifted through space as burning wrecks. Arcadia Station survived, but the victory came with a cost. Many human ships were destroyed during the May battle. Inside military hospitals across Earth, wounded soldiers filled emergency rooms. Families waited silently. Outside surgery chambers, children watched war reports on giant city screens. The War was getting closer. Humanity could feel it now. Late that night, Admiral Kane stood alone inside a hidden command center beneath Earth. A young officer entered quickly. "Sir," she said carefully. Long-range scanners detected movement near Saturn. Kane turned immediately. "How many?" The officer swallowed nervously. "Thousands." Moments later, giant doors opened across the hidden shipyards inside Saturn's rings. One by one, enormous warships slowly emerged from the darkness. Endless rows of black human battleships filled space. Some were so massive they blocked the stars behind them. Alliance. Spies watching from distant systems sent terrified messages back to their governments. Humanity did not have one fleet. Humanity had an entire hidden armada, and it was finally waking up. The hidden human armada changed everything. Across the galaxy, governments panicked after the images from Saturn leaked onto public networks. Billions of aliens watched giant human warships emerge from the rings like monsters waking from a long sleep. Some races demanded peace with humanity immediately. Others feared humans even more than the Dravok Empire. But the war was already too large to stop. Near the dying red star known as Valkor Prime, the biggest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The Dravok Empire had gathered nearly every remaining fleet. Over 30,000 warships waited near the star. Battle. Cruisers. Carrier ships. Planet. Killers. Entire walls of black metal covered space in every direction. At the center of the massive fleet floated the Dravok flagship, Blood Crown. It was nearly 20 kilometers long, a moving fortress filled with enough weapons to destroy worlds. Inside the command chamber, Supreme Warlord Craven stood beside the giant tactical display. His officers looked nervous. The humans had already destroyed several invasion fleets. Entire sectors were falling into chaos because of them. But Craven still believed one thing: humans could bleed, and today he planned to prove it. "Where are the Alliance fleets now?" he asked coldly. One officer answered quickly. "They are forming defensive lines near Valkor Prime." Craven nodded slowly. "And the humans?" The officer hesitated. "They are still approaching." "My lord," Craven smiled darkly. "Good." Outside the flagship, thousands of Dravok cannons slowly turned toward open space, waiting. Hours later, Alliance fleets finally arrived near the Red Star. Their ships looked tiny compared to the massive Dravok armada. Admiral Turvak stood on his bridge again, watching enemy formations cover the stars. Even after years of war, the sight terrified him. "This is suicide," one Alliance officer whispered. Turvak said nothing. He knew the truth. Without humanity, the Alliance would lose everything today. Then scanners suddenly activated. Human fleet entering the system. The bridge became silent immediately. At first only a few signals appeared, then hundreds, then thousands. A dark wall slowly emerged from hyperspace. The human fleet had arrived. But this time, it was different. These were not just warships. These were monsters. Gigantic dreadnoughts moved through space like floating cities. Their armor was thick enough to survive direct plasma bombardment. Blue energy glowed across their massive hulls like cold fire. Even Alliance officers stared in shock. One ship alone was larger than entire alien fleets. The human armada spread across space in perfect silence. No fear, no panic, only discipline. Then something strange happened. Instead of joining the Alliance defensive line, the human fleet moved forward, directly toward the center of the Dravok armada. Admiral Turvak frowned. "What are they doing?" One human communication officer calmly answered through the ER. "Alliance channel, human. Strategy does not require defensive positions." Turvak stared at the screen in disbelief. The humans were attacking head-on, against 30,000 enemy warships. Inside the Blood Crown, Dravok officers laughed loudly. "They are insane. Humans finally lost their minds." Craven himself smiled slightly. Then he gave the order, "Destroy them." The Dravok fleet opened fire. Thousands of red beams crossed space like burning rivers. The battlefield exploded into chaos instantly, but the humans did not stop. Their ships continued, advancing directly into enemy fire. Heavy explosions slammed against human armor, some ships burned, others lost weapons. Still, they kept moving forward. Then the human counterattack began. Small, human destroyers suddenly broke formation and rushed directly into enemy lines. Alliance. Commanders watched in confusion. Why are they sacrificing ships? One officer asked. Then they understood. The destroyers activated gravity traps hidden inside their hulls. Massive energy waves spread across the battlefield. Entire groups of Dravok ships lost movement control instantly. Before they could escape, human battlecruisers fired directly into the trapped fleets. Explosions filled the darkness. Hundreds of enemy ships vanished. Human tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They attacked aggressively. They predicted enemy movements before they happened. Their fleets moved like one giant machine. Every sacrifice had a purpose. Every attack created another trap. Inside human command ships, advanced battle AI systems calculated millions of possibilities every second. The Dravok fleet slowly began losing formation. For the first time in centuries, fear spread through the Empire. Then the humans revealed their true weapon. At the center of the battlefield, space itself suddenly trembled. A massive object slowly emerged from hyperspace. At first, many thought it was a moon. Then scanners identified it. Titan-class dreadnought detected the TU. Battlefield went silent. The ship was enormous, larger than anything ever built by the galaxy. Its black armored hull stretched across space like a moving continent. Thousands of weapon systems covered its surface. Giant blue engines burned behind it like artificial suns. Even stars disappeared behind its shadow. Alliance officers stared in disbelief. One frightened alien whispered, "That's not a warship. That's the end of worlds." The Titan-class dreadnought slowly moved toward the battlefield center. Then its main cannon began charging. Blue energy gathered near the front of the ship. The light became brighter, brighter, brighter. Dravok fleets immediately tried retreating. Too late. The Titan fired. A giant beam of blue energy ripped across space. Everything in its path disappeared. Instantly. Cruisers, battleships, carrier fleets, entire sections of the Dravok armada vanished in one attack. The explosion was so massive, it lit nearby planets brighter than daylight. Shock waves spread across millions of kilometers. Even Alliance ships lost power, temporarily from the energy release. Inside the Blood Crown, alarms screamed across every deck. Officers panicked. "We lost Sector 7. Fleet formations collapsing. Enemy breakthrough detected." Craven stared silently at the tactical display. Thousands of Dravok ships were gone. Gone in minutes. For the first time in his life, the Supreme Warlord felt fear, not fear of defeat, fear of humanity itself. Outside, the Titan-class dreadnought continued moving forward, slowly through burning wreckage. Smaller, human ships followed behind it like wolves behind a giant beast. Dravok fleets began retreating across every sector. The impossible was happening. The Empire was losing. Then a final message, spread across every Dravok communication channel. Supreme Warlord Craven himself gave the order. "All fleets withdraw from Valcor Prime." His voice sounded cold, but beneath the anger, there was fear. Then he spoke the words that shocked the entire galaxy. "Prepare the Earth extermination fleet." Inside Alliance command ships, silence filled every bridge. Everyone understood what those words meant. The Dravok Empire had stopped trying to defeat humanity. Now they wanted to erase humanity completely. Far away, near-Earth emergency sirens began echoing across human cities. The war was finally coming home. Earth had not seen fear like this in generations. Across every continent, giant emergency screens lit up with the same warning. Dravok extermination fleet approaching solar system. The message spread through cities, factories, schools, and space stations within minutes. People stopped walking. Traffic froze. Silence filled the streets. Then the sirens began. Long, deep warning alarms echoed across Earth like the sound of an approaching storm. For the first time since humanity entered the stars, Earth itself was now a battlefield. Far above the planet, Thousands of civilian ships rushed toward underground shelters hidden beneath major cities, orbital. Defense stations activated one after another. Massive cannons slowly turned toward deep space. Human military fleets gathered near Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The solar system was becoming a fortress. Inside the underground command center beneath Geneva, world leaders stood around a giant holographic map showing enemy movements. The red symbols kept growing. More and more. Dravok fleets were entering nearby sectors every hour. One nervous official looked toward Admiral Elias Kane. "Can we stop them?" The room became quiet. Kane studied the tactical display carefully before answering. "Yes." His calm voice surprised everyone. But then he added quietly, "The real question is how much of the system survives." Far away near Pluto, human scout ships watched the darkness, carefully. Then the enemy arrived. The Dravok extermination fleet emerged from hyperspace like a black tidal wave. Thousands upon thousands of warships filled the void. The fleet was larger than anything seen before. Planet-killer ships floated near the center of the formation. Giant gravity weapons moved beside heavy carrier groups. This was not an invasion fleet. This was execution. Inside the Dravok flagship, Supreme Warlord Craven stared at the image of Earth, rotating silently in space, blue oceans white. Clouds, small and peaceful, hated it. Destroy their outer defenses, he ordered. Leave nothing alive. Moments later, the fleet advanced deeper into the solar system, but something felt strange immediately. Human space looked empty. Too empty. No. Large defense fleets appeared. No. Major attacks came. Even Dravok officers became suspicious. "Where are the humans?" one commander asked nervously. Craven narrowed his eyes. Then the trap activated. The moons around Jupiter suddenly exploded with light. Hidden defense stations emerged from beneath their surfaces. Massive rail cannons fired across space. Entire Dravok front lines disappeared. Instantly, before enemy ships recovered, thousands of human attack craft burst from hidden tunnels inside nearby asteroids. Blue missiles filled the darkness. Explosions spread everywhere. Dravok formations shattered. Humanity had turned the entire solar system into a giant battlefield. Every moon, every asteroid, every planet, all armed. The Dravok fleet kept advancing. But every kilometer became a nightmare. Near Mars, hidden defense cannons rose from underground deserts. The giant weapons fired beams powerful enough to split battlecruisers in half. Above Saturn, human warships hidden inside the rings launched surprise attacks from every direction. Dravok ships exploded between the icy debris. The entire system itself seemed alive. Inside Alliance space, billions watched the battle through live broadcasts. Alien races expected humanity to panic. Instead, they saw something terrifying. Human civilians were helping the war effort willingly. Factory workers built weapons day and night without rest. Cargo pilots delivered supplies through active battle zones. Retired soldiers returned to military service without hesitation. Even teenagers volunteered. Inside emergency medical centers, humanity moved like one united machine. One alien reporter watching Earth whispered in disbelief, "They are not fighting for victory anymore. They are fighting for survival," and that made them unstoppable. Meanwhile, the battle near Jupiter became worse. The Dravok fleet pushed forward despite heavy losses. Thousands of enemy ships surrounded human defense stations. One by one, orbital platforms exploded under enemy fire. Human fleets slowly fell back toward Earth. Inside the command bridge of the Titan-class dreadnought Aegis, Admiral Kane watched the battle report silently. The losses were growing. Even human fleets could not stop such massive numbers forever. A young officer turned toward him carefully. "Sir, permission to activate Project Abyss?" Several officers looked shocked immediately. One commander spoke nervously. "That weapon was never fully tested." Another officer added quietly, "If it fails, it could destroy half the system." Kane remained silent for several seconds. Outside the bridge window, burning wreckage drifted through space. Human ships were dying. Earth was getting closer. Finally, Kane spoke. "Activate Project Abyss." Deep beneath the clouds of Jupiter, Hidden machines slowly awakened after decades of secrecy. Massive. Underground reactors powered on one by one, ancient. Warning lights flashed across dark chambers. Then giant metal doors opened, inside the planet's atmosphere. Far above Jupiter, strange black devices slowly rose into orbit. Dravok scanners immediately detected them. Unknown human technology. Detected. Craven frowned. What is that? No one answered, because nobody knew. Then the devices, activated space itself began, twisting. A dark sphere slowly formed near the center of the battlefield. At first it looked small, then gravity waves spread across nearby. Fleet's Dravok warship suddenly lost control. Entire cruisers started drifting toward the growing darkness. Panic exploded across enemy communications, engines failing, navigation offline. Something is pulling us. The sphere expanded larger and larger and larger. Then the Dravok finally understood. The humans had created an artificial black hole. Terror spread across the battlefield. Instantly, hundreds of warships were dragged into the dark sphere. Then thousands. Entire fleets vanished, screaming into the abyss. Even light itself bent around the growing gravity field. Human ships retreated carefully while the Dravok fleet collapsed into chaos. Inside his flagship, Craven stared at the tactical display in horror. He had fought hundreds of wars, he had destroyed civilizations, but he had never seen madness like this. The humans were using weapons forbidden by nature itself. One Dravok officer whispered shakily, "These are not soldiers. They are monsters." The black hole continued, consuming enemy fleets for several minutes before human systems finally shut it down. The dark sphere slowly collapsed. Silence filled the battlefield, where thousands of Dravok ships once floated. Nothing remained. The surviving enemy fleets immediately retreated away from Jupiter. For the first time since the war began, the mighty Dravok Empire was running in fear. Across Earth, exhausted civilians watched the battle reports with tears in their eyes. They had survived, but everyone understood something now. Humanity could never return to silence after this war. The galaxy had seen humanity's true power, and humanity had crossed a line that could never be undone. Late that night, as fires still burned across orbiting battlefields, Admiral Kane stood alone inside the command center. A transmission officer approached him carefully. "Sir," she said softly, "we intercepted enemy communications." Kane looked up. What did they say? The officer swallowed nervously. "The Dravok Empire is calling humanity." She paused briefly. "The death species." Outside the station window, Earth rotated peacefully beneath the stars. But deep in the darkness beyond the solar system, even larger enemy fleets were already gathering. The name spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The death species. That was what the Dravok Empire now called humanity. At first, many aliens thought it was only fear speaking. But after the Battle of Jupiter, nobody laughed anymore. Humanity had stopped the largest invasion fleet in galactic history, and they had done it with a weapon capable of bending space itself. Across countless worlds, alien citizens watched silent recordings of the artificial black hole, swallowing entire warships whole. Some races begged their governments to surrender immediately if humans ever turned against them. Others started worshipping humanity like dark gods of war, but on Earth, nobody celebrated. Too many ships had been lost. Too many soldiers never returned home. Cities across Earth held quiet memorials for the dead. Giant hologram walls displayed the faces of missing pilots and fallen crews. Families gathered beneath the names in silence. The war was far from over, and everyone knew it. Inside the underground War Council beneath Geneva, alliance leaders arrived from every major species for an emergency meeting. For the first time in galactic history, alien commanders now looked toward humans for protection. The same species they once mocked. Admiral Elias Kane stood beside the giant tactical display as thousands of red enemy signals appeared near the center of the galaxy. "The Dravok Empire is retreating," one alliance general reported. Another officer nodded, "but they are regrouping around their capital system." Kane crossed his arms silently. Already understood what was happening. The Empire was preparing for a final battle. Alien diplomat looked nervous. Can we negotiate peace now? Before anyone answered, a new transmission suddenly appeared across the chamber. The image of Supreme Warlord Craven filled the screen. His face looked colder than ever. Behind him, massive fires burned across the Imperial capital. You have damaged my empire, Craven said slowly, but humanity has only delayed the inevitable. No, one interrupted him. Craven leaned closer toward the camera. I will burn Earth, even if I must destroy the galaxy itself. Then the transmission ended. The chamber fell silent finally. Kane spoke quietly. Prepare the fleet. Days later, the largest military force ever assembled began moving toward the Dravok capital world. Human dreadnoughts filled entire hyperspace corridors like endless rivers of steel. Alliance fleets followed. Behind them, for the first time in history, races that once hated each other now fought side by side, because everyone understood the truth. If humanity failed now, the galaxy would die with them. Far away, the Dravok capital system prepared for war. Gigantic orbital cannons surrounded the main planet. Millions of defense drones filled nearby space. Massive fleets waited behind defensive walls stretching across entire moons. The Empire had turned its homeworld into a fortress. Inside the Imperial Palace, Craven stood alone before a giant window overlooking his capital city. Dark towers stretched across the planet beneath him. He remembered when the Empire feared nothing. Now fear lived everywhere. Factories worked nonstop and citizens hid underground. Military officers whispered nervously in dark halls. Humanity had infected the Empire with terror itself. An officer entered. Carefully, my lord, he said quietly. Human fleets have entered the outer system. Craven closed his eyes briefly. Then he turned slowly. Good. Outside the capital, the final battle began. Human fleets emerged from hyperspace in massive waves. The stars disappeared. Behind endless black warships, Alliance ships spread across the battlefield while Titan-class dreadnoughts moved slowly toward the enemy. To fences, the Dravok fleet attacked immediately. Millions of weapons fired at once. The darkness exploded into light. Entire sections of space burned like giant storms. Human ships pushed forward under heavy fire. One dreadnought lost its engines and crashed into an enemy defense station, destroying both instantly. Alliance fleets broke through outer formations while human carriers launched thousands of attack fighters. The battle became pure chaos. But slowly, the Empire began losing ground. Human strategy overwhelmed them from every direction. Dravok fleets could no longer predict human movements. Every retreat became a trap. Every defense line collapsed under pressure. Then, the Titan-class dreadnought Aegis reached firing range of the Imperial orbital shield. Its massive cannon slowly charged. Blue light spread across the battlefield. Dravok commanders panicked immediately. Stop that ship. Entire enemy fleets rushed toward the Aegis. Too late, the Titan fired. A giant beam tore across space and smashed directly into the capital shield network. The entire defensive barrier shattered instantly. Shockwaves rolled across the planet below. For the first time in centuries, the Dravok homeworld stood exposed. Panic exploded across Imperial communications. Some fleets surrendered. Immediately, others tried escaping the system entirely. But the war was already over. Human fleets surrounded the planet from every direction. Inside the Imperial Palace, alarms screamed across every hallway. Military officers ran desperately between command rooms. Craven stood perfectly still while chaos consumed his empire around him. An officer fell to his knees before the throne. My lord, we have lost the outer defense lines. Another officer rushed in seconds later. Human Marines have landed inside the capital city. The room became silent. Craven slowly sat down on his throne. For the first time in his life, he looked tired. Outside the palace windows, giant human warships floated above the city like dark mountains. The Empire had fallen. Hours later, explosions echoed through the palace. Hall's human soldiers moved room by room through the giant structure. Heavy footsteps grew closer. Then the massive throne room doors opened. A group of human Marines entered silently. Behind, them walked Admiral Elias Kane. Craven stared at him. Carefully, the old warlord expected anger, hatred, revenge. But Kane's face showed nothing, only exhaustion. Finally, Craven spoke. "You could destroy us all now." Kane remained silent. Craven looked around his collapsing throne room. "So why don't you?" For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Kane answered quietly, "Because this war already cost enough." Craven studied the human carefully. After everything humanity had suffered, they still offered mercy. The old warlord slowly lowered his head. For the first time in galactic history, the Dravok Empire surrendered. Outside, millions of citizens watched human ships fill the skies above the capital world. The Imperial banners slowly fell from towers across the planet. The war was over, but far away from the celebrations, deep inside hidden human observatories near the edge of the galaxy, long-range scanners suddenly detected something strange, an unknown signal. Not Dravok, not Alliance, something else, something distant. A young operator looked up nervously. "Sir, the signal is coming from outside the galaxy." Inside the dark control room, silence slowly spread. Humanity had survived the galactic war, but somewhere in the endless darkness between galaxies, something had been watching the entire time. The galactic war was finally over. For the first time in many years, the stars became quiet again. No massive fleets burned across space. No emergency broadcasts filled the networks. No worlds screamed for help. Only silence remained. But it was not the same silence humanity once kept. This silence came after destruction. Across hundreds of systems, broken warships drifted endlessly through space. Entire planets still carried scars from orbital bombardments. Some worlds had lost oceans. Others had lost cities older than human civilization itself. The war had changed the galaxy forever, and at the center of that change stood humanity. Above the former Dravok capital, giant human dreadnoughts floated peacefully in orbit while emergency rescue ships moved constantly between ruined cities. Instead of conquering the Empire, humans immediately started rebuilding it. Food transports arrived first, then medical ships, then engineers. Many alien races could not understand it. The Dravok Empire had tried to erase humanity completely. They had attacked Earth, destroyed colonies, and killed millions. Yet humans still chose mercy. Inside the ruined Imperial Palace, Admiral Elias Kane stood beside a giant broken window overlooking the damaged capital city. Smoke still rose from distant districts. Behind him, several Alliance leaders argued loudly around a tactical table. "We cannot trust the Dravok again," one alien general said angrily. "They will rebuild and attack later." Another commander nodded. "We should divide their territory immediately." Others demanded executions for surviving Imperial officers. The room filled with arguments. Kane remained silent until finally one diplomat turned toward him. "What does humanity want?" The room became quiet. Kane slowly looked toward the ruined city below. Then he answered softly, "An end." The leaders exchanged confused looks. "We did not enter this war to rule the galaxy," Kane continued. "We entered because nobody else could stop it." One Alliance officer frowned. "But humanity is now the strongest power alive." "That is exactly why we must be careful," Kane replied. His answer surprised everyone. Most races expected humans to create a new empire after such a victory. Instead, humanity began doing the opposite. Over the next several months, human fleets helped rebuild destroyed worlds across the galaxy. Human engineers repaired damaged alien cities. Human doctors treated survivors from every species equally. Even former enemy planets received food and medicine. Slowly, fear began changing into something else. Respect. For the first time in galactic history, races that once hated each other worked side by side. Humanity pushed the galaxy toward peace not through fear alone, but through unity. Still, the scars of war remained everywhere. On Earth, memorial ships carried the names of millions of lost soldiers through orbit every night. Families stood silently beneath the stars watching them pass overhead. Even victory felt heavy. One evening, Admiral Kane visited the Hall of Remembrance beneath Geneva. Thousands of glowing names covered the giant walls. Pilots, engineers, Marines, civilians, children, people who would never return home. Kane walked quietly through the hall until he stopped before one small name. Captain Mara Vance, the officer who activated Project Abyss near Jupiter. She never survived the battle. For several seconds, Kane simply stood there in silence. Then a young boy nearby looked up at him nervously. The child was no older than 10. "Are you really the admiral who stopped the Empire?" he asked quietly. Kane looked down at him. "Yes?" The boy hesitated. Then he asked the question many people secretly wondered. "Will there be another war?" The admiral remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he answered honestly, "I don't know." Far away from Earth, construction had already begun on a new galactic council station near neutral space. For the first time ever, humans, alliance races, and even surviving Dravok representatives sat together peacefully. The old empire no longer existed. In its place came something new. A fragile alliance built after unimaginable loss. But not everyone trusted the peace. Some alien races still feared humanity deeply. They remembered the black hole weapon. The Titan dreadnoughts, the terrible power hidden inside the solar system. Many believed humanity could conquer the galaxy any time it wished. But humans surprised them again. One by one, secret human superweapons were dismantled publicly. Several Titan-class dreadnoughts were turned into mobile defense stations instead of warships. Humanity wanted the galaxy to understand something important. Their strength existed only because the war forced it to exist. Deep inside human space, however, a different problem was growing. The unknown signal discovered near the edge of the galaxy continued repeating every few hours. Scientists still could not identify its origin. The signal contained strange mathematical patterns unlike any known species, and every transmission slowly moved closer. Inside Observatory Station Echo 7 near deep space, researchers studied the signal endlessly. One exhausted scientist finally looked toward the main screen with pale eyes. "It's changing," she whispered. Another operator turned quickly. "What do you mean?" The scientist enlarged the signal patterns. At first they looked random. Then the room became silent. The signal was no longer just transmitting. It was answering somehow. Something outside the galaxy now knew humanity was listening. Emergency reports immediately reached Earth. Inside the rebuilt command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Kane listened carefully as officers explained the situation. "The signal source is approaching the galactic border," one commander reported. "Estimated arrival, less than 1 year." Another officer looked nervous. "We still don't know if it's hostile." Kane stared at the stars displayed on the giant holographic map. After everything humanity survived, another unknown threat was appearing already. One younger officer finally asked the question everyone feared. "Sir, if another war comes, what happens then?" Kane remained silent. Outside the station window, Earth glowed peacefully beneath the darkness. Children played in rebuilt parks. Ships traveled freely between stars again. For the first time in generations, the galaxy had hope. The Admiral watched the peaceful world carefully. Then he spoke quietly. "Then humanity stands again." Far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something massive moved silently through the darkness between galaxies. Something ancient, something powerful. And somewhere deep inside that endless void, cold, unknown eyes now watched Earth itself. Back above the planet, giant human dreadnoughts floated quietly beneath the stars, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as guardians. The galaxy once believed humanity was weak because humans stayed silent. Now the truth was finally known across every star system. Humanity was silent. Because humanity understood the true cost of war better than anyone else. And when humanity finally entered the galactic war, the galaxy was never the same again.